This is the fun part when you start talking about hypothetical trades and packages that teams could put together in order to make acquisitions. Let's go over a conversation that Jeff Marek and Elliotte Friedman had regarding the Florida Panthers and one Jakob Chychrun of the Arizona Coyotes. Because when it comes to the trade interest for Chychrun and the amount of teams that could be involved in these types of discussions with the Coyotes, it gets so wild that when you start trying to put together trade packages, things can start to get pretty nutty when you discuss potential Chychrun returns. Now, before we go over what Marek said the Florida Panthers would have to give up, or maybe could give up potentially in a Chychrun trade, let's go over what exactly the idea was that a trade could look like and what the Arizona Coyotes could potentially want for a Chychrun. It's something that we have not shied away from discussing before, but recent sentiment from NHL insiders kind of reconfirms what we have already believed. They discussed this on TSN Insider Trading the other day, saying how the Arizona Coyotes want a Jack Eichel-like return for Jakob Chychrun. And that's a lot. It is. Jack Eichel went out there and fetched Tuch, Krebs, a first, and, the Buffalo Sabres gave up Eichel and a draft pick, so it's not like Eichel was worth all this stuff immediately, right off the bat. There was a little bit of prying that had to be done, and a little bit more adding that the Sabres had to do to get that type of package, but TSN and the guys kind of laid it down. Yeah, an Eichel-type package is what the Arizona Coyotes want for Chychrun. And so when it comes to what Marek and Friedman were discussing regarding the Florida Panthers, this is what Marek laid down on the line as to what Florida could give up. Here's the tweet from NHL Watcher transcribing their conversation. You're probably looking at a Spencer Knight, Anton Lundell, and a first-round pick. It sounds like a lot, and it is. But that's going to be the price for Chychrun. Friedman says, to me, that's a big price to pay, but you're looking at that and saying, that's the kind of price we should expect to pay if we're going to be in this, especially with the amount of teams we think are there. And so you start thinking about this idea specifically. Chychrun for Spencer Knight, Anton Lundell, and a first. And you start wondering, okay, let's talk about a Jack Eichel-like return. Would you rather have, this is the first question I want to propose to anybody who is going out there watching this video. Hello, by the way, if you're actually sticking around. Would you rather have Spencer Knight, Anton Lundell in a first, or give up a third-round pick to get Krebs, Tuch, and another first? If I'm going to be real, man, if I'm building a franchise from scratch, I'd rather have that Florida package, especially if it means I don't get to give up a third-round pick, because Eichel was traded with a third for that Tuch, Krebs, and first package, and meanwhile, the suggestion that Marek is making for Chychrun is presumably without any addition from the Arizona Coyotes side. Now, why in any world would Chychrun be worth as much, if not more, potentially speaking, than an Eichel? Well, Chychrun does not have this surgery that he has to go out there and do. He's a relatively healthy dude comparative to Jack Eichel, and the contract is a lot better, I would say. Sure, Eichel is signed longer term, and Eichel is a franchise caliber center, but $10 million a season is a lot. Chychrun, on the other hand, is going out there making a pretty solid $4.6 million a season till the end of 2025, wherein the guy is going to be, 26 years old? So he is signed for a good amount of time. He will be a free agent when he hits his prime, or in the midst of his prime, I guess you could say. He's already kind of in his prime, because he's a guy that last season was an absolute game changer. 41 points, 56 games played, 18 goals too, the top goal guy amongst all defensemen. I always hammer that point home because it kind of establishes the point that, yeah, this is a very legit NHL player who is having a down year on a team that is getting good production out of guys like Shane Gostisbehere instead. Now, is this season more of what Chychrun is rather than last? Honestly, I'd be inclined to believe that it's just a down year and that he has good potential to bounce back soon because of the body of work that he has established for himself over the past 5 years, pretty much. And so, even though I do believe that Chychrun today is not worth as much as Chychrun was worth last year, I still do think he should be worth a lot. It's just Knight, Lundell, and a first a lot? I'm not really too sure about that. Now, Spencer Knight, as we have noted, he's having his own fair share of troubles this season too. He got sent down to the AHL for a game, and he actually got lit up in that game, unfortunately, but his NHL record so far this year behind Sergei Bobrovsky has not been a good one. An .891 save percentage in 15 games played and a .351 goals against. However, he is 7-4-0, so there you go. At least he's stringing together some wins. Knight's in a bit of a predicament because he has indeed sort of lost that spot, that starting spot, to Sergei Bobrovsky, which isn't particularly a bad thing because you want Bobrovsky to do well, especially with the amount of money that guy's making, but for the development of Spencer Knight, you would rather see him continuously do well like he had been doing last season, where he had a .919 in 4 games in the regular season and a .933 in 2 games in the playoffs, than you would have rather seen him do poorly this year. Anton Lundell, though, on the other hand, has been absolutely phenomenal ever since stepping into the Florida Panthers system. He made the team right out of camp. He has 23 points in 35 games played this season, and he's got 11 points in his last 10 games and 5 points in his last 5 games. He's been one of these guys that has fit in so well with the Panthers ever since making the jump from HIFK in the Finnish Liga, and right away it looked like he belonged. He's a guy on this team, and he's come here to play. And, you know, at 19, 20 years old, there definitely is so much more to look forward to into the future with Anton Lundell. This guy was only a teenager right when the season began, so this metric of 23 points in 35 games played, if you do the math on that, I mean, he's on pace for a total of 50-something points. Like, that's really, really good for a 19-20-year-old in his first year in the NHL. Sure, it might not win the Calder this year because Raymond and Zegras and Seider are all up there too, but Lundell is a fantastic talent. We've been projecting him as a really good elite player for years, and seeing him do how well he is doing so far, it's been an absolute treat to see. So, for Spencer Knight, a guy who could potentially be a number 1 goaltender, a definitive number 1 goaltender, an elite goaltender in this league, plus a guy like Anton Lundell who, if he continues on the pace that he is at, could potentially be in the same realm of an Alexander Barkov, if you just want to throw names out there, because, you know, that's the name that everybody was throwing out there when he was drafted. Anton Lundell is a guy who displays such great two-way ability. He just knows how to play the game right. He can contribute offensively. He makes some really strong passing decisions in the offensive zone, and defensively, he's definitely no slouch either. He's got that label of a prime Finnish two-way center, and he's had it for such a long time now that if you even think about trading this guy, my gosh, you better be getting an elite caliber player coming the other way, let alone Lundell plus Knight plus a first. It's a huge package, and it's one that I honestly don't think is worth it for Florida, but you know, if you really want a defenseman, you really want that guy to solidify your decor instead of playing Olli Juolevi however many minutes you're playing him a night, getting a Jakob Chychrun is gonna be worth a price. And I mean, technically, if you want to go all in, right? You want to go into the playoffs, you want to make a splash, you want to finally beat those demons and beat Tampa in the playoffs this year. You guys have goaltending in Bobrovsky. You guys have forward depth spread throughout the entire lineup. It's not just Anton Lundell. He is one of the many pieces who is doing extraordinarily well on this team. Is a defender all you need? Because if a defender is all that you need, then I guess then you could justify getting rid of a Lundell, getting rid of a first-round pick, getting rid of a Spencer Knight, who is technically just a backup goaltender, and getting that defenseman to replace a Juolevi in your lineup in Jakob Chychrun. But that's just me. I personally still think that in a vacuum, the trade proposal is kind of outrageous. It is pretty stacked for the Arizona Coyotes, but again, TSN said at the beginning they want an Eichel-like haul. It's just, to me, that haul of Knight first and Lundell is potentially worth a lot more than giving up a third for a first, Tuck, and Krebs. So, talk to me in the comments, what do you think about this trade proposal that Jeff Marek is laying out there as to what the price could be for a Florida Panthers to get a Jakob Chychrun? You know, this kind of thought popped into my head while we're doing the outro here. It is kind of more understandable when you start thinking about what Friedman said as well. It's a big price, but Florida might have to pay this just because there are so many other teams that are in on Chychrun. As we noted, Chychrun is not Eichel. He is not injured. He didn't have the neck thing that Eichel had to get that big surgery for, and that other teams, any team that would have acquired Eichel, had to agree upon. Nor is he making $10 million. So I could understand in some aspects why you could say a Chychrun should be worth more than Eichel, but Either way, talk to me in the comments. What do you think about this entire idea? Would you do this trade if you are a Florida Panthers fan? Would you give up Lundell, Knight, and a first for Chychrun? Talk to me in the comments. Let your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.